Hey, hey, my friend.
What's up?
It's another week of Case Files.
With Kat.
And Ashley.
Yeah. What's up?
It's a week.
It's a week.
At least we're recording.
Hey, thanks everybody. We're dancing. We are dancing over here.
Yeah, it's good. How are you? Yeah.
Don't ask.
Okay, great. So moving on.
Next.
What are you drinking? It's a very fancy looking can.
I am drinking this awesome beer. Oh my gosh, it was a limited edition. It's like a very it was seasonal. It's out of Memphis. It's called Strizzle Beer, B-I-E-R. It is the Visual Dissonance edition. I don't know. I don't even know, like, it's an IPA. That's all I know. Oh, it's from Wiseacre Brewing Company out of Memphis. And it is delicious. We cleared H-E-B out and Kroger. And now we can't find it anywhere. So
it looks like a cool can.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's so good. It's just delicious. So we're a little, this is the last can. This is it.
Oh. Gotta keep it forever now.
Make more. Make more, Wiseacre. Make more. What you got?
I'm just drinking another beer from that advent calendar that I got. It's a German beer. I have no fucking idea what type of beer it is, but it's pretty good. So I literally don't know how to pronounce any words on this can except for tradition and premium.
It is called Herrenbrau.
Yeah, but that's like, I don't know what type, like, I don't know what any of these other words are. So that's all I've got for you. I'm sorry, guys. It's a German beer and it's delicious.
It's Herrenbrau. Yeah, tradition. It looks very Bavarian, like it's got the Bavarian flag, but I don't know where it's out of. I don't read German. Sorry.
Me either. I'm so super sorry.
So super sorry.
I did have a question of the week.
Oh, yeah.
We asked it last week. We got some good answers.
Yeah.
And it definitely ties into the story.
I'm
so
so excited.
The question is, if you were talking to someone who's never seen a horror movie before, what is the horror movie that you would show them as their first horror movie?
I don't really remember my answer. It might have been The Shining, or it might have been The Conjuring, because that's still, I think, one of the best ones. But I'm going to change it this time.
Okay.
Mine it's new, came out in 2022, I think in September, maybe August, and it's called Deadstream.
Oh.
It is on Amazon. I think you can get that. What is it called? It gets a subscription to like the haunted or the horror films.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what
I forget what it's called. So it's there or it's on AMC. Oh, okay. So it's one of those like exclusive. Yeah. But it is a in the vein of Blair Witch, but funny.
Oh my God, what a great segue.
It is funny.
Yeah. And
it's like Blair Witch meets a YouTuber. So this one dude he's like this crazy YouTuber, and he they don't call it YouTube, and he's like, I'm gonna do my ultimate fear is ghosts. So he goes and he's like, I'm gonna spend one night in a haunted house, meanwhile streaming the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he sets up all these cameras and he's telling the history of this house. It is funny and scary all at the same time. It's this perfect mixture of things. And like I've been telling everybody about it. Like you just need to watch it. Absolutely. It's hysterical and at the same time, just like you have those jumps.
Yeah.
So totally go see it.
I gotta watch that. Of course, mine would be The Strangers. Not that it's like the scariest movie ever made, but I just love the fact that you're just chilling in your home. Yeah. Someone knocks on your door and then bam, you're dead.
That is.
I mean, not in that exact order, but it's terrifying because it's an everyday occurrence with solicitors and everything.
That's why I don't answer the door.
Yeah. And so I would definitely The Strangers is one of my all-time favorite movies. So that would be my answer for sure.
Yeah. So. And I would be like, no, I'm never going to watch another one ever again. Yeah, this one.
Never answering the door.
Deadstream, I think, brings in the humor with the jumps. And it's so good. Oh my God.
Have to watch it.
And listen, that set was not a set. That was a real house.
Damn.
I don't know. It's filmed in Utah. I don't know where they found, because you know when you can, like, when you're when you're inside of a really dusty, dirty place,
Yeah.
the dust you can see moving through
Yeah.
the air when you have lights on. There's dust everywhere. There's bugs flying. I mean, like
Yeah.
everywhere. I don't know what they did. That was a really good set. As a filmmaker's wife,
Yeah.
we were like, damn, look at this. Like we were just talking about it. So
Yeah.
like, awesome job to the creators. But the guy
Well,
who wrote it starred in it too. So
that was a good segue into what I'm going to be talking about this evening.
I can't wait.
So we all just discussed that real life is terrifying. The things that humans do to one another in real life
Terrifying.
is so much more than any horror movie I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
So I am covering a real life horror film. Like it was a real horror film involving the murder.
Film,
Yes,
Okay.
it involved a horror film. Involving the murder of Randi Lee Trimble. So have you heard of this?
No.
So Randi was born December 15th, 1974 in Virginia. Her mother was Nancy Chavez and her father was Gary Peck. So as a child, her father severely abused both Randi and Nancy. And after 7 years of marriage, Nancy left Gary, refuses to acknowledge him by his name to this day, will not even acknowledge that she was ever married to him. But Randi went on to live a good life. She would go to graduate from Bloomsburg University with ABS and MS degree in speech and language pathology. She worked as a speech language pathologist at Hershey Medical Center in the Department of Neurorehabilitation. So Randi was 25 and she married a man named Brian Trimble who was 24. They got married in September of 2000 in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. So Randi and Brian had met when the two of them applied to work at the same daycare center at the New Cumberland Army Depot. And they both got the job and they became friends and they very shortly after began dating. It was like love at first sight for them. So to all outsiders, the marriage looked perfect. It was going so well.
Wow.
They seemed so happy, nothing out of the ordinary, right? They adored one another. There's multiple interviews where both of their mothers are talking about how you could just look at them and they looked so in love and nobody ever saw anything that was going to come later on.
That's always how it starts.
They were very well respected in society and their acquaintances held their the couple's dedication to one another and commitment in very high regard. Like people looked up to them. Okay.
Wow.
So unfortunately, we all know things are not always as they appear.
Right.
So not long before they were married, Randi started to notice unusual patterns in the way that Brian spoke. And having studied speech pathology in college, she knew something wasn't right and had told Brian that he needed to be evaluated by a doctor. So Brian went.
Did they give examples of what that was?
Just like just different patterns in his speech. Just it didn't specify.
Okay.
Not like weird he's going to murder me vibes. Just like there's something not right with his health, kind of.
So like okay, that's interesting.
Maybe like slurred words or
maybe. Yeah, that's
didn't make
interesting. I have
sense.
to look that up.
He ended up being diagnosed with MS.
Oh.
And he was worried that Randi wouldn't want to marry him because of this. However, according to Brian's mother, who was named Wendy, Randi handled it very well. According to Nancy, who was Randi's mother, when she asked Randi if she still wanted to go through with the marriage when they learned about the diagnosis, her response was, "I love this man. I wouldn't want him to do this to me if the roles were reversed.
Wow.
And I'll stay with him. This is what my life is devoted to, him and my children." So they didn't have children yet, but she was just saying it was going to be like her life was him, and if they had kids and their family and stuff, no matter what his diagnosis was, no matter how hard that was going to be on them.
Good for her.
Nancy said at that point she knew that she was like, her daughter was truly in love with this man. So after getting married, Randi and Brian lived in suburban Pennsylvania, and they were described as living a very comfortable life. Randi would talk to her friends and family about how happy she was, how well everything was going, that they were thinking about starting a family together. And in 2002, despite his MS, Brian was able to get an IT job at a very large healthcare provider in the area. Brian was described as introverted and someone who didn't make friends very easily. However, at this job, he met a coworker named Blaine Norris. They quickly became best friends. They were interested in a lot of the same stuff. They enjoyed role-playing games. They both played Dungeons and Dragons. They were both into video games. They just instantly bonded. So Blaine Norris was also married. Him and his wife, Wendy, not to be confused with Wendy, which was Brian's mother, but they're both named Wendy.
Okay.
Blaine and Wendy had a baby named Mason. Blaine was very much into horror films. He saw how popular the Blair Witch Project movie was and the sort of homemade footage type deals, and he wanted to create his own horror film.
Oh my God.
And he had actually been writing on a movie script, like he had all of this planned out. So the film was to take place on the Appalachian Trail and was set to be a slasher movie. The plot was basically a group of hikers go out on a trail and they slowly get murdered one by one. So Blaine started taking Brian out on the trails. They were trying to scout the location, kind of getting ideas of how it would go. And Blaine was really trying to convince Brian to be a part of this movie. He really, really wanted him to be a part. This was something like something else that the two bonded over. And Brian was super interested. He wanted to do this. He loved Blaine's ideas. He wanted to be part. He agreed on the spot to be Blaine's cameraman. He's like, I want it. I'm in. Let's do it. In his mind, it was an escape from reality. Something to kind of help him get, instead of constantly being reminded of his MS and thinking about it and how much it was controlling his life, he viewed this as an opportunity to kind of like think about and focus on something else. So up to this point in time, Brian had not once mentioned this movie plan to Randi, his wife. He hasn't told her where he was, what they were doing. Brian, so they had been gone for hours scouting this location, okay? And no phone signal, nothing. So he hasn't told her what they were doing, and Brian and Blaine arrived back to Brian's house after scouting the trail for hours. And Randi immediately starts asking Brian where he's been, stating she'd been calling him for hours. She was really worried because of his diagnosis that something had happened to him, and she couldn't get a hold of him. And Randi was just super protective of him because of his health issues, and she just kept it pretty close. Like, she was worried about him. You know, she loved this man. This was her husband. This was her world. And so this really started to cause Brian to have a lot of resentment towards her. God forbid you have a loving, caring spouse. He hated that she was so protective, and in his mind, she was controlling. And in reality, she was just concerned because of his diagnosis, and she couldn't get a hold of him for hours. Did not know where he was, what he was doing. It's not like he said, hey, we're going to go check the spot out. I may not be able to talk to you.
We're scouting locations for a movie that you know nothing about.
Right.
Duh.
Thank you, Louie.
Thank you, Louie.
So flash forward 3 months. The script is finished. They've titled it Through Hike. That's literally the most creative name. Through Hike.
Going through the hike? Through hike.
Yeah,
okay.
Through Hike.
Sure. All right.
Super creative. It totally screams slasher thriller, but hey, I'm not a movie producer. The auditions
They're still workshopping.
They start auditioning actors. Mind you, Brian's wife has already told him no. Okay.
Oh, now she knows about it.
She knows about it. That day after scouting, they went back. She told him. She was like, no, I don't think so. So flash forward 3 months, auditions start. As I mentioned earlier, the super great plot is 5 hikers. They go out into the woods and they start being killed by a ghost. The ghost is that of an ancient miner named Samuel Toon. The actors initially described Blaine as being smooth talker, being very meticulous and very thorough in every aspect of the film. They said they were really enthusiastic to be part of this project and to start filming with him. So by all appearances, again, things seem to be going swimmingly. However, Blaine lacks one major, very important thing that everyone needs to make a movie. Money.
Okay. That's not what I was going to guess, but okay, I don't know.
What were you going to guess?
Experience. I don't know.
Oh, well, that too.
Talent.
Experience, but most importantly, money.
Equipment,
He needed money. He budgeted $20,000 for this movie and wanted Brian to provide it. Brian had mentioned that him
Hold on.
Oh my.
Yeah, right. Brian had mentioned him and Randy had saved thousands of dollars, and Blaine really wanted Brian to use that money they had saved for his movie. Randy had wanted to have this nest egg saved so that if there was a time that Brian could no longer work, that they would still be okay. They would be safe, you know. And she was trying to be responsible.
Oh, God. What?
I know, just fucking crazy bitch. Brian, that was a joke, people. Brian and Blaine were not responsible human beings. So let me just make that clear in case it wasn't obvious. They were not responsible.
I have gathered.
Brian immediately goes home to try and convince Randy of how great of an idea this movie is, how hard Blaine has been working on it, how it's a really good investment for them. Naturally, Randy says no. She goes on to tell him this isn't about just the money. She was worried about his MS and how the labor-intensive movie would affect his health.
Right.
She tells him she's concerned that if something happens out on the trail, they won't have phone signal. And they had planned for the whole time they were going to be filming to be living in tents and shit in the woods. And she's like, you cannot just do that. Like, your body will not allow you to do that.
Wow.
And
so he was pretty advanced in his diagnosis then.
Yeah.
Was he?
I guess.
I mean, because like, I don't know. I guess he must have been showing enough signs.
Yeah. Like, he had a lot of difficulties. So,
yeah. Okay.
Naturally, she said no. So this highly upsets Brian, really kind of put him into this depression and filled him with hate and resentment towards Randy. According to Brian, Randy forbid him from taking part in the film. I don't know that she used that word, but that's the word he used. Brian, of course, goes to tell Blaine. Blaine freaks out on him, screaming how he really needed Brian, how he had been counting on him, how he's supposed to be the cameraman. And Brian simply tells him that Randy won't allow him to do it, and he leaves. He's like, that's it, man. I can't do it. So now Blaine has no budget, has no cameraman, and no creative partner. But like all good little psychos, he does not let this stop him. He basically says, fuck it, I'll do it all myself. He maxes out all his credit cards, puts his house up for collateral, goes into massive amounts of debt to buy the camera equipment, pay the actors, etc. All the while does not tell his wife a thing. Does not tell Wendy that he's in credit card debt, that he put the house up, that all of these things. So he gets all this equipment. He gets these actors. The crew heads out to the trails in August of 2002 to start filming. Blaine has, at this point, now become the director, producer, and cameraman. Oh my God. So from the very beginning of filming, I know this is a shock, they run into all kinds of issues.
Of course.
It's an absolute disaster. The camera wasn't working correctly. There were audio issues. It had been half a day, and they only filmed one scene, which according to the actors was like maybe 3 pages into the script. All of these issues were causing Blaine's movie to be very behind schedule.
I mean, already.
Yeah. And so literally every scene was just bringing in more obstacles and trying to like transform this trail into the perfect scenes that he was envisioning, because he was so meticulous and detailed about it, was costing him everything and consuming so much time, because they would literally every scene stop to set up the next scene on the trail. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to speed through this because I have like...
That's okay. That's okay.
Anyways, meanwhile, Brian and Randy are back in their home.
Brandy.
Yeah.
The new character.
Meanwhile, Brian and Randy are back in their home, where Brian is just continuing to become more resentful of her. He is sick of being treated the way he views that she's treating him. Yeah. He is tired of being told what he can and can't do. He considers his life to be mundane, and he is just growing absolutely tired of it. He views Blaine as being able to have fun, having this creative, exciting life. He sees Wendy allowing Blaine to make this film. Of course, again, let's remember she has no fucking clue what is happening. But Brian doesn't know that, right? Brian just thinks that Wendy's cool and like she's on board with it.
why can't you,
Yeah.
Randy? Why can't you be more like Wendy?
Yeah, exactly. So Brian was just completely fed up. He was going to work every day and coming home to what he described as a wife, and I'm quoting here, as a wife who wanted to know where he was all of the time, like a prisoner. In several interviews, Brian's mom, also named Wendy again, had mentioned that Brian had told her Randy and him were having problems, but they had been going to counseling. I did not see anything else anywhere that said they had actually been going to counseling. Like nothing. And I read a ton of different interviews.
Yeah.
So it was just this one episode that was covering the case that said that. I don't know if that's just something he told his mom. So the things that happened later would be, I don't know,
less bag.
I don't know.
I mean,
so we're going to go back on location for the movie where Blaine and his crew are. Wendy, Blaine's wife, comes out to the set with Mason. At this point, she has found out about the house being put up for collateral. When I say collateral, what he actually did was fucking sell their house.
Oh, no.
He had put it up on the market and had sold it without telling her. Yeah. So she obviously is very upset. She comes out to the set to see what is going on. He says, well, I've got this apartment that we can move to, and like moves them into this apartment and tells the film crew that he'll work on his marital problems after the movie is done.
Oh, no.
So, you know, in later interviews, the actors said that Blaine claimed everything was fine and they had worked it out or whatever, and he would just deal with it later when the movie was a success. So filming resumes as if nothing just happened, and the actors are not feeling it. They want to go home. Each day they are filming is even longer. The conditions of being outdoors keep getting worse. There's a lot of filming happening at night where they can't see what's around them. They can't see what's happening in front of them. There's weird bugs everywhere, like everywhere. And they just describe this as like an actual real life horror movie. Like they, in multiple interviews and the TV show that I originally saw this on, it said that the line between horror film and genuine fear started to blur for these actors. They were not comfortable.
That's the thing. Like I always watch horror films going, man, they must have been comfortable. Like, it's scary to film a horror film, even if it's funny, or even if there's moments of like, woo, you know, you get the creeps.
Yeah. So fast forward. At this point in the story, we are 5 days into filming, which was supposed to be the last day. Blaine's marriage is at its complete breaking point. Everyone is exhausted, but Blaine is determined to finish this film. He's like, we are not leaving. We are going to finish this film. He knows it has to succeed, or everything he would have been doing to this point is a waste. And so he
sold his house.
Yeah. And so he starts requiring the actors to refilm scenes over and over and over until he feels it's perfect. Oh my God. And this is just killing them because they're not actual actors.
And they're not getting paid. Or they're not really getting paid either. Probably union dues.
So filming finishes eventually, and Blaine has moved him and his wife into that apartment that I mentioned. 1 week after moving into the apartment, Blaine comes home to find Wendy has taken their son and just moved out. She has filed for a divorce. She told him she had enough of his shit. And it was really starting to hit Blaine that while he had done while he had done what he set out to do by filming this movie, everything else was falling to pieces around him. He had all of this debt. He lost his home. He lost his wife. He lost his son. Everything was crumbling. So once again, Blaine turns to Brian. They begin hanging out. Blaine keeps talking about all of his financial problems to Brian.
These fucking women.
I know. I'm sure that's exactly how it went.
That's probably exactly what.
And
fucking bitches taking our money, not letting us do what we want to do.
So he keeps talking about all these financial problems to Brian. Keeps saying, man, I know it's such a great film. If I could just get this money to finish, it'll be a huge hit. Are you sure Randy won't let you? Are you sure you can't help? And
I've ruined my life. Can you ruin yours too?
Exactly. Blaine shows the movie to Brian, who is just literally amazed by this film. He's like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. He thinks it's just the bee's knees. So seeing this, seeing this once again triggers those feelings of resentment towards Randy. Oh my God. It's a reminder that Randy was super controlling and didn't let him live his dreams. So he started to confide into Blaine these feelings he was having. Said he didn't want this future that Randi had been planning out for them. Then when he envisioned what she was wanting, it was just, and I'm quoting here, it's just baby, office, baby, work, baby, like that forever. So this was the beginning of the end. I think we can all see where this is going. The two of them come up with this idea of how to kill two birds with one stone. They would murder Randi and collect her life insurance policy. Win-win for everyone, except for, Randi.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So January 10th.
But Wendy's like free.
Wendy and her son have left. She's divorcing him. She's not in the picture. January 10th, 2003. It's evening time. Randi comes home from work. She pulls into the garage, turns off the car, and goes into the home. Everything is just an average evening until 8:43 p.m. when 911 receives a frantic call from Brian, who claims to have found his wife's lifeless body on the floor. When I tell you his acting that he did on this phone call, he should have fucking won an Oscar award, because he truly sounded like shocked and upset, and that he had no idea this was coming.
Oh my God.
He was like sobbing. He was called his mom crying, and I'm going to play a clip of the interview later, but just amazing acting. So when police arrive on the scene, they find Randi dead inside the garage. They discovered she had 27 stab wounds, and had also been strangled. Detectives on the scene described Brian as being in a complete state of shock. His mother said he had called her sobbing. He was honest to God putting on the show of a lifetime. He had not just planned this entire fucking thing for months. Naturally, they begin asking him questions. Where were you? What were you doing? Can anyone back up your story? He tells the police he was out having dinner with a friend, which was true. A waitress did confirm this. They asked him if he had any idea who would do such a thing. And of course he says, no, I have no idea. Randi had no enemies. And so according to Brian, he had been out with his friend having dinner. He had returned to his home to find it ransacked and Randi laying in a pool of blood in the garage, which is when he called 911. When the detectives, this part is important, when the detectives came out and interviewed him the first time, when they came and found the body, they asked him if he had touched the body, if he had gone near the body. He said no. So that's important for when I play the clip later. So on January 13th, 2003, a few days after she died, there was a viewing at the same church where Brian and Randi had been married. Brian had told his mother that he wanted to go in first and see her alone, so she was waiting outside of the room talking to someone when they heard Brian hysterically crying. Apparently, when he looked at the body, he could still see some of the stab wounds and defensive marks on her hands. It was so bad they couldn't, they just couldn't cover it. So his mother described the scene as emotionally very painful. So detectives at this point have no idea. They don't suspect Brian. There was no motive, no witnesses, no fingerprints, no DNA. So about 2 weeks into the case with still no leads, one of the detectives, Detective Freeling, decides he wants to revisit the crime scene. So he drives out to the house. He asks Brian to walk him through it all again, and he is filming this entire interaction with Brian. So I want to play the audio clip for you.
Okay.
Thinking when you get out of the car?
I'm thinking my wife's probably going to be a little angry with me because I'm getting home around 8:10 and I told her I'd be home by 8.
Okay.
There, that's the door. It was closed.
The front door was closed?
The interior door, yeah. Put the key in the lock.
All right.
And I go to turn it and realize it's already unlocked.
Any other lights on in the house besides the Christmas tree and this tree?
No, exactly how it is.
What do you do next?
Detective Freeling now turns to the discovery of Randi. Randi was killed in the garage.
Take your time.
Saw her laying there, her stomach, her face down.
Mm-hmm.
Randi, are you okay? She didn't answer at all. She's lying on the floor in a pool of blood.
Okay. You all right? Remember, you're my emotions. What are you feeling?
Freeling goes over Brian's discovery of Randi again and again.
I'm trying to put me in your head in that place.
Just after the 911 call, I had across the puddle of blood. just gave her a little nudge to see if she'd move her throat.
He did tell me that he had opened the garage door. He had gone out and he touched the body.
And as you said, you step across the blood. Do you kneel down at that point, or show me how you get down?
Yeah. Stepped in.
That was in contradiction as to what he had told the investigators previously.
And you nudge her. Yeah.
He had told them he looked out there but never said a word to them about going out and actually touching her.
Did you touch the body, sir?
No.
No.
And you nudge her.
Brian's changed his story.
So by changing the detail, the detectives immediately became suspicious of him again.
Wow.
So Detective Freeling was convinced that Brian definitely knew more than what he was letting on. They confiscate his computer as evidence, and forensics had done a thorough search on it. The forensics investigator had found where Brian had been researching a book and saved a portion of it called How to Commit a Murder.
Oh.
Obviously,
That's inconvenient.
obviously, he has a true crime podcast.
Abby.
Just kidding. Obviously, they call him and ask him to come in for questioning. He calls his mother and asks her to go with him, which I found odd.
That is odd.
They arrive at the police station, and Detective Freeling begins to explain what they found and tells him if he confesses, then they will take the death penalty off the table. At this point, Brian looks at his mother and says, "Mom, I want you to leave the room." She says, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yes, I need you to leave the room." So once again, his mom left. Once his mom left, the detective point blank asked him, "Who did kill your wife?" And Brian freely gives up that Blaine did it. He tells them that Blaine Norris did it. Detectives arrive at Blaine's apartment with search warrants and to arrest him. During the search of Blaine's personal items, they found a receipt in his car that listed things like gloves, Coleman fuel, a camouflage mask, a ghost-looking type mask, kind of like the Scream mask, a knife that matched the stab wounds that Randy had. And so when detectives asked why they killed Randy, Brian stated, and I'm quoting, "He felt like he was trapped in the marriage and didn't see another way out. I didn't want to put her through the pain of divorce."
Oh my God.
So Blaine and Brian started working on this plan. Blaine told Brian that he would murder Randy for him in exchange for Brian paying for Blaine's debt. Brian would receive $100,000 from Randy's life insurance policy and give $20,000 of that to Blaine in exchange for the murder. So the two spent months planning this murder, like thinking of different ways to do it, thinking of the alibis, the timing. They completely staged it, choreographed it, and practiced it on one another and purchased the items together. So this was 1000% meditated.
Premeditated.
Premeditated, yes. I'm so sorry.
They're meditating. They're meditating
Yes,
over
they're
it.
meditating about it. I mean, they probably did. On the night of the murder, January 10th, the plan was set in motion, and Brian invited an old friend out to dinner with the sole purpose of establishing an alibi.
Oh my
Which,
God.
side note, like, fuck, can you imagine how traumatized that person
That
must
person?
be now, knowing that they were just being used as an
100.
alibi?
Oh my God, 100%.
So while Brian is with his friend, Blaine was waiting for Randy at the house. As I mentioned earlier, Randy had arrived home, parked in the garage, gone inside. Once she was inside, Blaine set off her car alarm and waited for her to come to investigate it. So once she does, he sneaks up behind her, strangles her, and stabs her 27 times. Jesus. They truly thought that they thought they had watched enough horror movies and TV shows to get away with this murder. They thought they had planned it perfectly. So
they didn't listen to this podcast. No, I'm kidding.
Once they were arrested, Blaine decided to plead guilty to murder with a life sentence without parole. Brian received the same sentence. Blaine told the court that he had found God and God forget. Like between the time he committed the murder and by the time he went to court for it, he had found God and God had forgiven him.
That's the loophole.
Yeah. Since being sentenced, Brian has tried multiple times to get his conviction overturned unsuccessfully. Since he pled guilty, he can't appeal, but he has been filing what's called a post-conviction relief petition, which alleges that he had ineffective counsel and that his guilty plea was not voluntary.
Is
None of
his
it
mom
has worked.
still alive?
Yes.
Oh my God.
He is currently incarcerated still in Pennsylvania.
Good.
Blaine has also made petitions against his conviction unsuccessfully and is incarcerated in a separate prison also located in Pennsylvania.
Good.
There have been several shows done about this murder, the most
Really?
popular being an episode on the American Monster series, which is where I saw, which is where that clip came from. Series which Randy's mother hates it. She hates that there's shows about them because she hates that people like that the killers are getting attention.
Oh, yeah.
But since Randy's murder, Nancy has created 2 amazing ways to help others in need and to tell Randy's story versus their story.
Yeah.
The first being Randy's Race, which is a 5K run walk for hope and courage. In 2005, she started that. This has become an annual event that for over the past 14 years has raised more than $423,000. This money gets donated to local domestic violence agencies to support programs and services for children. One of these programs is Randy's Kids Club, which is a 12-week therapeutic group for children who have experienced domestic violence. And another is Randy's Camp, which is a 3-day interactive summer camp held each July. And then the second thing she did was form this foundation, which is called Randy's House of Angels in 2011. The link will be in our show notes. And so Randy's House of Angels is dedicated to helping all children of domestic violence and their loved ones who are exposed to and or are the victims of domestic violence. And their main mission is to protect the integrity of children and assure an opportunity to grow up in a safe environment.
That's awesome.
So that's my story.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And so I'll have the links to the Randy's House of Angels as part of the show notes because I think it's just amazing that she turned something so horrible into a way to help others.
Yeah, for sure. That's like, it reminds me of Savannah, you know, like the Kinchins and doing that. Like they couldn't just let her die for nothing. You know,
there's only one documentary about it that the mother approves of, and that's because the person that made it donates the profits to domestic violence shelters.
That's so great.
And so I will include that name in the show notes because I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but there's only one that she is, because it tells more of Randy's story.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, one of the things that we decided that they didn't, you know, like when we talked about what are we going to name this walk? And they, you know, at first it was like the whole name, like giving just her. And then it was like, I think just using Savannah, that it just means a little bit, it's not as personal and not as like this one person because it's happening to so many people.
Right.
And so how do we, and you know, how do we take care of the children after her? Yeah. And all of the children who may not be experiencing physical abuse are seeing it, and that is abusive. Yeah. And they are having to grow up and out of that.
And all of Nancy's programs help.
That is so awesome. So awesome.
Do we have any time to read any of the answers?
We do, but I don't have them up.
I got them up.
Okay, great.
So the question of the weekend was, what is the first horror movie you would show someone?
Yeah.
So I love psychological thrillers. So the movie Split, Seven, or Silence of the Lambs, if we're going that route. But the Insidious series, if we aren't going psychological. Yes,
you know what?
I love
Silence
Split
of the Lambs is a great one because it's so like it's in your head. Man, there's so much.
Another one I would show, which I don't really consider necessarily a horror, but the psychological thriller would be The Cell. I fucking love that movie.
Yeah,
The Shining, Castle Freak. I haven't heard of that one, but Amy says just remember you love me once you watch it. So that makes me kind of nervous.
Oh, Castle Freak?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to see that.
Poltergeist.
Yes. Oh my God.
Seth says Tusk, so they won't have nightmares, but they also say, what did I just watch? I hate that fucking movie.
I haven't seen that one. Okay, that's really funny.
Exorcist, then The Omen, then Poltergeist.
The Exorcist, yeah.
Going all in, Silent Hill. And then Scream, the OG, then the final Scream directly after.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So thank you for answering our questions.
Yeah, those are some good answers. Man, now we got to look up some movies.
I know. I was like, I asked this question because I was like, I need some new material to watch. So it's kind of like win-win for me.
That's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Deadstream was one of those. The kids were having a sleepover at Grammy and Papa's, and Jason and I were just like, what are we watching? And we saw the trailer. We didn't even make it through the trailer. We were like, that's it. We're watching it.
Yeah.
And it did not disappoint. But if I had to go back, I mean, yeah, God, I haven't seen Poltergeist in so long, but that was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That is such a scary movie. The Shining is right there. I'm surprised no one else said The Conjuring.
You know, yeah.
But The Cell is a good,
I love The Cell.
What
I
a
love
throwback. That's good.
But when they said psychological thriller, that made me think of that. 'Cause that's more of like, The Collection's also another good one. Have
Ooh,
you,
yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine like robbing a house and then there's like a serial killer in it? Like, that'd be my kind of luck.
That's just, there's so many, I mean, and then of course you're the strangers, like there's so many things about that is just terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, like to me, it doesn't even have to be like gory or it's that like that simple fear.
Yeah. For me, a lot of times it's not scary in the moment, but then fuck, as soon as I turn
Like,
out the lights, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
But thanks for answering the question of the weeks. If you have any question of the week suggestions,
Dude,
please message them to us.
Dude.
Please. Or story ideas.
Please don't make me think right now. Yes. Please don't make me think right now.
We love you guys very, very much.
Very, very much. I need your help in brain usage.
Yes. Send us stories if you would like to tell your own story or whatever. I mean, not if you committed a murder, but like if you have a story and you would like to tell it, you know, by all means. I mean,
or if you've committed a murder
that's
and you want to turn yourself in.
We would love to have the exclusive. So, but just know that you're probably going to get arrested after it airs. Like I can't.
You will get arrested. We're just going to put that out there. I'm not harboring a criminal.
Yes. But feel free to confess anything to us. We love it. We're here for it.
Be anonymous. Anonymous. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again for understanding. Sometimes we just have to take a week off because life has been insane on my end. My end, not Ashley's, just mine. So I appreciate all the patience. Keep listening. It won't always be like this. Right? It won't always be like this, right? But yeah, any other news?
I don't think I have any other news.
What was that?
Your cat.
I hope so.
He's playing with the book that he so elegantly threw off in the middle of my story.
He's scary. He's so scary. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.